Well, hello everyone, Mr. Mesqua here. Today we're going to talk about the circulatory system. Now, I am trying this new app, so if some things take a little bit longer, just bear with me. Remember, I try not to edit these things so that it's just much faster. Besides, I'm not a streamer, not a YouTuber. I don't have the 7 hours plus in a day to go streaming. So let's get to it. Here's the circulatory system. Your circulatory system circulates blood. And in this case, the blood vessels or the transportation medium that is going to be used for transporting blood is number one, we have our veins right here and our arteries. And this is going to be, whoa, did I just misspell? There you go. Arteries. So veins, you can see here clearly they're very different from arteries, and here are some of the distinctions. Veins are much more flexible. Veins have thinner walls and therefore can withstand less pressure. And the last thing is that, let's see, that veins carry blood toward the heart. Now, you may hear from YouTube videos or, I don't know, some kind of tutorial, they may use another criteria such as veins carry deoxygenated blood. Because there is one exception along with arteries and using that criteria for arteries, I like to think of this really kind of bulletproof criteria. It always applies this to this case. Veins always carry blood toward the heart. Now, how about arteries? Well, one thing that we can notice here is that arteries are more rigid, or you can simply say they are less flexible. But because they are more rigid or less, well, rather, the reason why they are less flexible is because they have thicker walls. And because they have thicker walls, they can withstand more pressure. And finally, if veins are the ones that carry blood toward the heart, then these carry blood uh, away from the heart. Now that we know the significance of, for example, arteries having thicker walls, well, remember this. Take a look at this wall, right? All this area is the wall of the artery, whereas the vein, again, it's much more flexible. It's more of an oval, and it has a much thinner wall. So now that we know the significance of thicker walls within blood vessels and organs, now we can actually make note of some of the things here. Actually, let's put this in black so you can note it. Look at the thickness from here to here. Look at this thickness compared to the walls of the atriums. So you can assume, based on previous information, that the atriums, sorry, the ventricles, maybe a yellow will stand out here. Yeah, the ventricles both can withstand more pressure. Whereas the atriums, and if you don't know what an atrium is, or if atrium is a foreign word to you, which it was to me at some point, you can just, hey, look up an atrium. Look what it is. You can find it in many shopping centers, indoor shopping centers, inside gardens, but it's really just like a glass roof, not quite a greenhouse, but it's very interesting. So atriums have less pressure than the ventricles. All right, let me see if I can rearrange these. Every time I pause the video, it gets moved. So you'll notice here we said ventricles or arteries or rather not or, but and. So ventricles and arteries both have thicker walls to withstand more pressure. Take a note. You'll notice this is what we studied this week. Here is pressure and volume. And so on this side of the graph, let me do that in yellow. This is pressure. This is very high pressure. This is low pressure. Take a look at the aortic pressure, or the pressure within the aorta. It's always very high. We'll follow this path. In fact, let me do that in green just so that it's not lost, doesn't lose its color. It's always very high. Take a look at the atrial pressure right here. It's always relatively low. It has some spikes and it has some fluctuation, but relative to the aortic pressure, remember aorta, well, if we haven't seen that yet, the aorta is the biggest artery in your body. And so being an artery, again, it has these really thick walls, so the pressure in the aorta therefore must be very high all the time, or at least it can withstand pressure, and it serves its purpose compared to the atrium. So now let's go ahead and analyze this. I took a snapshot of this. Let me see. Oh no, can I? There we go. I'm going to erase some of the drawings that I have done just so I can clean up this whole thing. And so what we're going to look at is we're going to analyze this. Even though it's not moving, we're going to try to see what is happening at each second, or what will happen. So here we are at 0.1 to 0.2 seconds. And you'll notice there is some pressure building up in here in the ventricle, in both ventricles. The pressure is getting so high, it's about to spike. Oh my goodness, it is about to go up. The pressure is about to get so high in here that it's going to open these valves. Because when the pressure in this area is higher than the pressure in this area, then there will be a push inward or into this area. Whichever area has the most pressure, that's in the or blood is going to be shot into the area with less pressure. It's just try it, pushing your hands against each other. If you put more pressure on your right hand, then your left hand is going to be pushed back, and vice versa. And so what's about to happen, we're right here. Well, the pressure in the aorta, in the aorta is about to spike because the pressure in the ventricles is going up. Now let's undo some of these things. And because the pressure in the ventricle is rising and the pressure in the aorta is, about to shoot up from all the blood that's going to shoot out into the aorta and then into the body, well, what happens when all this blood leaves the ventricle? The ventricular volume goes down. So as the aortic pressure goes up because of the blood flowing into the aorta, the ventricular volume, or the amount of blood in the ventricle, is going to go down, and they are inversely related. Then as blood fills up the ventricles, after all this blood has left the ventricles into the aorta and into this pulmonary artery, well, pressure in the aorta will begin to go down and normalize, and the cycle begins again. Now, if we can end with one very interesting thing, you'll notice we said, well, here the aortic pressure goes up, but the interesting part, and it really is, the aortic pressure, remember this section right here, the green, does not go up. It does not go up until the ventricular pressure is past its point. Basically, the ventricular pressure shoots up. What's about to burst? And then it picks up the aortic pressure, and they both go up in tandem. Why? Because once again, the pressure in the ventricle is going up exponentially. It's filling up with blood until again it's about to burst, like inflating a balloon. And when that happens, let's go back here. When the ventricular pressure reaches about 80, there's so much pressure here, it bursts out. And, well, of course, the pressure that is in this area is going to translate or carry through to the same pressure in this area. Because the same amount of blood that was here, check, is now being transferred here, check. And then, again, they go down in tandem. Of course, the ventricular pressure goes down way more because it really it empties out almost completely, not completely. You never have zero amount of blood in any given part of your body. You don't want that, but it just goes down so much that now, let's go ahead and erase some things. That now, let's say at let's see, this thing just keeps zooming out. Give me a moment. There we go. Okay. Oh no. Oh, this is good enough. Let's say at at 0.6 seconds of the cycle, we're going to check this out. The ventricular pressure is somewhere, remember this side is pressure, somewhere around 3. The atrial pressure, the yellow one, is a little bit higher, so 5. And the aortic pressure is still pretty high at somewhere like 80. So in this scenario, we're going to try to ignore the picture that you're seeing here, these areas, because we're going to make our own drawings. But this is going to lead us to our next video, because the pressure in here is higher than the pressure in here. At this point, blood will be flowing in this direction, but because the pressure in here is not higher than the pressure in here, then these valves would remain closed. So what we would see is just closed valves. But this valve would be open because blood is flowing, blood is flowing in this direction, since the pressure on this side is in the atrium is greater than the pressure in the ventricle. Well, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Pachung!